All right, yeah, it's working. It's all good. Let's see if I can get everything else to work at the same time. Now, my name's Coen Ashton. I'm 17 years old, and only 3 weeks ago, I was sitting in an ICU bed, as I had to get almost a metre of my gut taken out. Now, this was actually not too bad, as I was born with cystic fibrosis, which affects your lungs and your gut, as you all know. You grow big, sticky green mucus, have a lot of tablets, throw up every here and there, and can't absorb your food. Well, when I was about 8 years old, I got really sick. So let's see if this works. Oh, got the first one. Let's see if I can do it again. Wait for it. There we go. So when I was about 8 years old, I got really sick. Now, I never had a normal life. The longest I ever had between hospital admissions was 5 months, and that only happened once. Hospital admission is normally about 2 weeks, but it can go on for a lot longer. When I was 8 years old, I got a bug. The bug almost killed me. I spent a whole year in hospital, to the point where I was running 41-degree temperatures for 5 months straight, without a 24-hour break in between. It got to the point when I cooled off, no one knew whether I was cooling down and going really cold, or whether it was actually my body getting ready for the next temperature, in which case it means I was getting better. Now, through this time, I also got insulin-dependent diabetes, which means I have to carry around this little insulin pump 24/7, everywhere I go, unless I'm swimming, which means I have to take it off. So, it got to a point where the doctors said, you may only have weeks to live. We'll do a medication change. It's got about a 1 in 10,000 chance of working, but hey, let's give it a shot. It worked. And I started to get a little bit better, to the point where I was coming home for a few weeks at a time. I was used to spending a whole year in hospital. Now I was spending a few weeks at home. I was spending time with my dog, my family, and although I could only walk a few metres without coughing, throwing up, just basically dying on the spot, it was still a better time in life. Now, I was getting so good, and by the time I was 12 years old, I thought, right, I'm doing all right. So I thought I'd jet ski the length of the Murray River for organ and tissue donation. This took me 7 weeks, and I needed a double lung transplant around this time as well. It sounds a bit bizarre, but I actually got well enough to go on the transplant list. I actually did a little bit too well. And the transplant guys said, you got a quality of life to you. So I thought I'd jet ski the length of the Murray River to use up that little bit of lung space I had left. Let's do something good out of it. It took me 7 weeks. I signed up 1,000 new names to the organ donor register. Now, somewhere along the way, an anonymous person put me up for Pride of Australia medal. I got a letter in the mail saying, can you please come to Brisbane as you're one of the finalists for the state? I came along, I won this, which put me into the next category of national and people's choice. So I went on, and guess what? I won national and people's choice. I was the first person ever to take home all 3 medals. So I was feeling pretty good, but all the excitement did take a toll out on my body. I did get that little bit of the goal that I said before of using up my lung space. Now, I had to get relocated to Melbourne, as at this stage, I was only, 13, 14. But it wasn't just me. My whole family had to pack up from Queensland, leave the house, leave friends, any other plans we had. We had 2 weeks to get down so I could go on the waiting list for a double lung transplant. Through this time, I swapped everything I loved doing out in the countryside, motorbike riding, fire twirling, as even though I only had a limited amount of lung space left, we're talking under 30%, I never let it stop me. I could only do it for a limited amount of time, but I'd always keep going. I couldn't do it like all my mates, but hey, why not give it a shot? At this stage, on the transplant list, I was sitting there on oxygen for most of the day, just watching the day go by. It was really different to what I've been used to since my medication change when I was 8. Every month I used to go into the hospital to go see the transplant team. I used to go in there and I used to ask every time, can you hurry up and get me the set of lungs? I'm dying here. I was the only person in the room who found that funny. I had to do bloods, I had to do breathers. It got to a point where my lung function wouldn't actually read. They said it's just disappointing. It just makes us all, get a bit depressed. So they stopped doing that. So my last lung function that I did while waiting on the transplant list was 18%. I was getting sicker and sicker. What I'm wearing there is a ViPAP machine. It looks pretty cool. It looks like I should be sitting in a fighter plane jet flying around somewhere. But that was actually helping me breathe, as I was too weak to breathe for myself. It would force the air in and drag the air back out. I was also doing physio, as anyone who knows, anyone with CF knows. It's just basically being used as a human boxing bag for about 45 minutes a day. Now, I waited on that transplant list for 13 months. In that time, I had one false call. Can you imagine getting a call, going into the hospital, and them saying, sorry, you got to go home? Well, a month later, I got another call. And for me, it felt so much of a dream, because I thought I had already missed out on that one chance. They were waiting for me to go on life support. I was getting that sick. It was that much of a dream that just before I got under, I was in the theatre. I actually got a call from my best mate. He said, you want to go to the movies tonight? Probably a bit busy. And meanwhile, the doctors are all panicking, going, how'd you get that phone in here? I woke up 6.5 hours later, which for a double lung transplant was actually a really short time. I had cut down lungs from an adult because I ran out of time waiting, which means instead of the 5 lobes that I'm hoping most of you have, I've only got 3 of them. But it still fills up my chest cavity because I'm not the right height for a 17-year-old. I woke up with a big tube down my throat and drugged up to the max. I had to stay in ICU for 5 weeks. Now, this isn't the place in the hospital where you really wanted to be. I had lines going everywhere. I had them going in my neck. I had draining tubes going into my heart, going into my lungs. I just had them everywhere. I looked like something that crawled out of a hole somewhere. But I had the transplant. I was getting better. And I didn't have to do physio, which for the first time in 15 years, I didn't have to do. It was a weird feeling. I used to ride the bike, as after sitting in ICU for 5 weeks, plus a little while in the ward, your muscle strength, everything dies down. Not only that, it wasn't like for the past 15 years I used to run every day. So I used to ride on that bike every day, every afternoon, and I'd work on it as hard as I could until I was just about falling to sleep. Because they said, in this first 3 months, can base out the rest of your life and how fit you can get. I still had to take up a lot of tablets, up to 60 a day. What you see there was about a week's worth. It may seem like a lot, but when I was CF, well, when I had the old lungs, I was taking a lot more than that. After these few months, I had a few new scars, but I was feeling reborn. I could finally do all that stuff I wanted to do. Run, jump, laugh. My particular words were, "This is alien-like. No human should be able to do this." I did all the stuff I finally wanted to do. Fire twirling, kite surfing, spear fishing. I could actually hold my breath now to go and catch the fish. So it was the first time ever I could catch one. I still have to go back into hospital every few weeks to a few months, but it's not like it used to be. It's not going in there for IV lines, medication, and really just stuff that makes you quiver. I was just going in there for the day. I'll go in there, make sure that my lung function's fine, make sure I have no rejection with the new lungs, and then I'll be home doing everything I love doing, which is the great thing about transplant. I was doing so well, I decided the rest of Australia has to know the difference a transplant can make. The difference that someone who's got cystic fibrosis and sitting there in a hospital bed for most of their life, just defying everything anyone's ever said, to the point where I could do something like this. I decided to jet ski back up the River Murray. As I did this prior in 7 weeks, I went, well, I've got to do it in 7 days. Some of the pro jet skiers in Australia said that this could be impossible. This distance, this time, and that much energy for someone who's only really been living their life to their full potential for about 8 months. I completed it and I finished it. I showed Australia what a difference can make. Now I'm around, I'm doing stuff, and I only take a few tablets a day. Thanks to my stubborn mind and everything else, I can now do everything I want to do. I can be the person I want to be, and I can live my life how I want, to the extreme. Thank you. My name's Coen Ashton. Hope you all enjoyed it.
Great job.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Coen Ashton.